We'd like to welcome each and every individual to Voices of Integrity podcast for buying a business. I think we've discovered something. The keys to being successful in buying a business is, and successful in having that business be successful, is the three C's. The first C is consistency. And the second C is consideration. And then the third C is competency. So, inconsistency, like we're consistent. If we have a job, we're consistent at a certain level. But you own a company, you have to be at another level. If you have a larger company, you have to be even at a higher level. So it's dimensionals. It's going to grow. So consistency is being able to listen, not just to words somebody's saying, but also to how they're saying and what they're meaning. Considerate or so the first part of consistency is listening really well. The second is, can you communicate what you're thinking to somebody else? And then the third is actually doing. Are we just talkers or are we doers? And so business owners have to be doers. In consideration, do we know how? Are we self-aware? And so we know our own personality, and then do we know are we considerate of other personalities? So what causes one personality pain causes another personality pleasure. So Luke is kind of leading this up. And so how did Luke do in considering both of you today?
Not too great.
Not too great, you know. And so Luke, I'm sure that you'll be listening to this and you'll say, man, so there's different levels. And so I just finished up another podcast that was really interesting. And we used actually the new pickleball, book that my wife and I are writing. And so they talk about, so there's 5+ levels. So the level 1 is the beginning, the novice or the beginner. New players learning basic rules and paddle skills. That's 1 to 1.1 or 1.5. Advanced beginners are players starting to understand positioning and rallies. Intermediate is consistency, reliable, and development strategies. And then advanced are going to be high court awareness, strong strategy, and consistent performance. And then 5.0 to 5+ is expert mastery of all skills, high level, and tournament experience. And so can that same thing be applied to buying a business, running a business, owning a business? And so I remember when I was, in high school, I was a junior in high school and I took my first accounting class. And I went ahead and loved it, absolutely loved it. I said, when I grow up, I'm going to be a CPA. So when I was 16 years old, I said, I'm going to become a CPA. And then when I took my senior year, I took another class. I said, I really want to do that. Then I went to college, to community college for my 2-year degree. And the first class I took in college, I was like, yeah, I'm pretty smart. Like I got this whole thing down. Like, yep, I got it covered. This is easy peasy stuff. This is not hard. And I did that for the first week, and then I did it for the second week. And week 3, I was lost. So in college, we covered in 2 weeks, we covered what we had covered in 2 years in high school. And so you think you're really good. So I've been told that, by a couple of people that I'm probably a 3.5 in, with certain parts of 4. So there's certain things that I'm now, after roughly 3 years, I'm being coached professionally. So I have a pickleball pro after 3 years. So I asked her, she says, well, I don't know. I haven't seen you enough, but my guess is you're probably a 3.5, but there's parts of your game that are a 4. And so the more you know in business, the more you know you don't know. Like Bill Gates at the pinnacle of his success, he said Microsoft is 18 months of going out of business. So the number one challenge I think in business is for men are going to be ego. They think they're really smart. They think they're really good. So I asked Courtney, I said, what's the biggest challenge that not that the beginner has? And she said, it's taking what you learn and applying it. I said, okay, what's the biggest challenge the intermediate person has? And she said, same thing, taking what you learn and applying it. I said, what's the biggest challenge that the advanced has? And she said, it's, she said, it's doing, it's like it's doing your drills. Like you're so good that you're not doing your drills. You're not practicing what you should. I said, that's interesting. I said, what's the biggest challenge that men have? And she kind of laughed and she said, ego. And I said, okay. And then I said, what's the biggest challenge women have? And she said, they tend not to prioritize themselves. They put their husband and kids above themselves. So they don't work out. They don't often take care of themselves. They don't make it a priority to do it. I'm like, that's fascinating. And then I said, what's the biggest challenge that kids have? And she said, discipline. So is that the same thing? Are those same principles true in business? Might be, and true in buying a company. So I've got a friend of mine, and she went ahead and asked me about, a company they were looking at buying. And so it may take you 10 tries to get one, or it might take you 100 tries to go ahead and find one. And when you find one, you might have done everything right, and it turns out that it doesn't work out for you, or it's far harder, more likely, far harder than you ever dreamed possible. You might do not everything wrong, but you might do a whole bunch wrong, and it turns out really good for you. And you think, wow, I'm a really smart person. Well, maybe you are, or maybe you're just fortunate. So hopefully that's helpful. And I know you guys will go ahead and be very gracious with Luke for his struggle in consideration of both of you. And so I'm sure you guys will give him a lot of grace as he gives you both a lot of grace. Ben, anything you have that you want to cover today?
If you have no desire to purchase a business and or own your own business, how do you create that desire?
Why would you want to do that?
Seems like everyone else does it.
That's interesting because Jason didn't even think about owning his own business. He didn't even think about it until he was 18. Didn't even know it was an option. So you must have an interesting group of people where you have everybody, like everyone around you doing it. So neither of you were at the Coffee Connection. You both had good reasons, I'm sure, and that's what businesses I find successful business owners. If they're not doing something that's good or that great, something they need to do, as long as they have a good reason for not doing it, then it's fine. But I'll give you a little sneak peek about Coffee Connection this last time. And so my wife and myself have been married for 41 years. We've always owned businesses, even when we were in college. So always owned businesses for 41 years. So we were interviewed by Nora and Luke, and they did they had some interesting questions. It was very fascinating. They did a phenomenal job, and it was interesting at the very end. I don't know. Somebody said something about, so Mark, what would you advise? Would you advise somebody to buy a business or start a business? I said, if if you don't have to start a business, don't start one. Like if you can do anything else in the world and you're fine with it, well then do it. Because starting a business is probably one of the most, and buying a business, it's different. It's not better, it's not worse, it's different. In some ways, it's so much easier. In other ways, it's so much harder. In a lot of ways, it's maybe more dangerous because you might, um, you might be a novice and playing in the tournament or something. I mean,
Well, I
there's
see everyone who owns a business, and I'm like, yeah, I don't want that. And then I see
yeah.
everyone who doesn't own a business, and I'm like, I don't want that.
So we went to a marriage seminar. We went to a marriage seminar, and the wife of the presenter, she got up and she said, "Women are fortunate; they have a lot of options. Men, they're not. They have two options. They can either work or go to prison. Those are your two options,
Maybe prison's the option.
right? So it could be prison. You can do that, or maybe your wife will support you for the rest of your life. So
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, if you can do anything else, Ben, yeah, don't start. It's like I would rather die in the jungle than live in the zoo. Like that's just me. Like I just, you know what? That's just me. So if you can do anything other than own a company, probably best to do that. You probably not. It's probably best not for you to own your own company. Good question. Anything else, Ben? You got
Nope.
Jason? Anything you got?
Just thinking about Ben's desire thing is like if you don't have the desire, I don't know. I feel like you have to have at least some level of desire or interest to be able to.
I think you either have to have desire or you have to go ahead and you have to have either desire or you have to have massive amount of discipline. I think it also helps to see the future. And so a lot of times people are stuck in the present and they're like, well, I got a good job and it's paying me well and nothing wrong with that. And so, but am I going to be happy doing that the rest of my life? So I'm in a season of life where, I don't have to work. Just don't. Um, and there's a part of me that doesn't like developing people for sure. And then there's another part of me that it's like, that's what I have to do. Like, I just have to do it. Like, this is, just what I have to do. So discipline, I think will give you, I think just discipline, just being driven. I think a higher life vision, like if you're just focused on yourself and maybe a spouse, maybe children, if that's what your vision is, if that's what your life vision is, that's what you've been put on this planet to just do that. Well, then, you might not have to go ahead and work for somebody else. So, yeah. Anything else, Jason, that you have?
I think so.
So you guys can't go to the Coffee Connection. That's an opportunity lost forever. You'll never be able to go back and get that back. But there is a debrief after the Coffee Connection. And it's interesting because I was not real interested in doing the debrief, but but I said, if they're going to be it, I'm going to be there. And Elaine's the one that drove that forward. So I went through the whole Coffee Connection. And then I went through the whole debrief. And I think it was within the last 5-10 minutes of the debrief that I recognized probably the greatest flaw that I have. I just suck at it. I mean, just absolutely beyond comprehension. It was just crazy. I'm just like, you got to be kidding. And my 3 bachelor's degrees didn't help a bit, obviously. Being a a pastor's kid going to church 3 days a week for 40 years. That didn't help. Like everything, all the books that I read, that didn't help. Like, I'm like, this is what's holding you back more than anything else. And what's fascinating about it is that the individual who pointed this flaw out to me wasn't meaning to point it out to me. But the question was asked, like, why do why do you attend? Like, why are you here? Like, she wasn't feeling good, had no sleep, had a little guy. She was, she was definitely, you know, so she was there, even though she wasn't feeling good and everything. And her response absolutely broke me to the core. It was unbelievable. So a lot of times, like I have a rule, do things that I don't want to do. And the reason I have that rule is because I have found in life that is when I grow the very most. And so it was just crazy, just crazy. Anything else you guys have?
Nope.
All right. Anything else you got, Jason? All right. Sounds good. You guys have an amazing day. Bye bye.
Yeah.